This place is older than Stonehenge, and even older than the pyramids. Hidden in the hills of southeastern Turkey, archaeologists found Göbekli Tepe, a huge ceremonial site that dates back over 12,000 years. The tall stone pillars stand in circles, each of them built with animals like foxes, lions, vultures, and snakes. What makes it very strange is that it was built by hunter-gatherers, not farmers, and proof of this is a radiocarbon dating, which shows that it existed before even people learned to grow crops. Now, this fact destroys everything we thought we knew about ancient civilization. The unusual story says people started farming first, then built temples, and this is visible everywhere. But this single place, Göbekli Tepe, turns that idea upside down. Here it looks like people wanted to come together to worship and create a sacred place before farming even began. Some researchers even point out that the religion inspired people to start farming. But what exactly was this place? Some say it was a temple for the dead, where vultures picked at human remains as part of a ritual. Others think it was a gathering spot where different groups met for ceremonies and feasts. What makes it more mysterious is that it was later buried on purpose around 8000 BC, covered with layers of soil, as if the builders wanted to hide it forever. Recent studies have revealed a few answers. Scientists found traces of wild grains, showing that people held large feasts there, and the carvings of humans show that ritual sacrifices might have happened. But not only that, scientists used laser scans to study the buildings and found out that the stone circles were built in line with the stars, meaning the site was connected to some kind of early sky worship. So we now understand this much. Göbekli Tepe wasn't a town or a fortress. It was a massive ritual center that changed the story of human history. But some mysteries still remain unknown. For example, who these people were and why they left no written records, no signs of cities or kingdoms, not even real villages. The people who built it, their beliefs, and the reasons they buried it still remain hidden under the sands of time. Far out in the Pacific Ocean is Rapa Nui, better known as Easter Island. This small island holds more than 800 giant stone statues called Moai. They stand silent across the land, some of them reaching up to 33 feet tall and weighing over 80 tons. Their calm faces and empty eyes have fascinated visitors for centuries. But how did a small island community, cut off from the rest of the world, build and move such massive figures? For years, people have come up with wild ideas, like the aliens did it, or a lost ancient technology built it. Yet the truth is more natural than we think, yet still incredible. The Moai were built from volcanic tuff, a soft type of rock found at a quarry called Reno Raraku. The hardest part wasn't building them, but moving them across the island without wheels or animals to pull them. Tests and experiments have helped solve this mystery. Using ropes and teams of people, researchers found the statues could have been moved upright, rocked forward step by step, like you'd shuffle a huge fridge across the floor. The worn marks at the bases of the statue even matched this method, showing how they might have walked to their final spots. But there's another question. Why were some Moai later knocked down? The island traditions tell of wars between different clans, fighting over land and food. The statues, which once represented power and ancestors, may have been destroyed during battles. Later European invasions and slave raids also caused more battles, leaving many of the Moai damaged or destroyed. Modern science has finally explained how the Moai were built and moved. When you look high above the city of Cusco in Peru, you would see a fortress that almost seems impossible to believe. It's called the Sacsayhuamán. The walls of these massive structures are made of giant stones, some of them weighing more than 100 tons. But an interesting fact is that they are all fitted together so tightly that not even a knife blade can go in between them. The stones are different shapes and sizes, and yet they fit together perfectly. They weren't molded or poured. They were cut, hauled, and carved by hand. So how did the Inca build something like this without iron tools, wheels, or animals strong enough to pull such heavy stones? When Spanish explorers arrived in the 1500s, they couldn't understand it. Some myths claim that demons must have built it, and the reason is quite clear because the skill needed to do this seemed to be beyond what they thought humans could do. But archaeologists have found clues that explain this mystery. By studying the quarries and tool marks, they noticed that workers used harder stones to pound and shape the blocks over many weeks or months. These stones were dragged up ramps and moved using ropes and wooden rollers. But here is the most surprising fact about their building. The perfect fit of these stones were achieved through endless testing, placing each stone, lifting it, reshaping it, and setting it back until it sat just right. But the Sacsayhuamán wasn't only a fortress. According to the evidence found by archaeologists, the buildings show that it was also a place for ceremonies. The zigzag shape of the walls may have been meant to look like the teeth of a puma, an animal that was sacred to the Inca and symbolized the city of Cusco. There are also rooms that show signs of festivals and offerings. But why use such huge stones when smaller ones would have worked just as well? It was probably meant to show the empire's power and for religious signs because such massive stones had a kind of spiritual strength that could protect the land. Today, we understand how the walls were built and that Sacsayhuamán served both military and religious purposes. Looking across the highlands of Laos, there's a strange and haunting place known as the Plain of Jars, where more than 2,000 giant stone jars are scattered across valleys and hills. Some of these stones are taller than a person, while others weigh several tons. They look like huge cups left behind by giants, and for a long time, no one knew who made them or why they were there. Local legends tell many stories about them claiming that a race of giants once lived there and used the jars to brew rice wine after winning a great war, and that they were also used to collect rainwater during the monsoon season. These tales just kept this place seeming more and more mysterious for centuries. Archaeologists, however, have found clues that reveal the truth. Excavations around the jars revealed a lot of human bones and burial items, coupled with ashes, which mean one thing. These places and these stones were part of ancient funeral practices. The jars may have been used to hold bodies while they decayed, with the remaining bones later buried nearby. But proof of this is that similar customs have also been found in other parts of Southeast Asia, and this totally supports this discovery. Modern research has confirmed some of this. In 2019, scientists used ground-penetrating radar and dating technology to discover burials that are about 2,500 years old. This means the jars belonging to an Iron Age culture that has since disappeared. But researchers have not been able to make a full discovery of the entire site, and this is because large parts of the area are still dangerous because of unexploded bombs left from the Vietnam War. This has made it difficult for archaeologists to study every site. Now, there are also questions about how the jars were moved from distant quarries and why they were placed in groups across such a wide area. What we know is that the jars were linked to death and remembrance. They were obviously part of a deep cultural tradition. The Plain of Jars remains one of the greatest combinations of history and legend, and a silent mystery built into the hills of Laos. Beneath the rocky land of Cappadocia in central Turkey lies a hidden world called Derinkuyu, the largest underground city ever found. Its tunnels go for more than 250 feet deep and spread through many levels filled with chambers, stairways, wells, stables, and even chapels. At its height, Derinkuyu could protect over 20,000 people along with their animals and food. But the big question is, who first dug this massive maze and why? Archaeologists agree that the underground city was made as a place of refuge. Narrow halls and huge rolling stone doors allowed people to block themselves inside when enemies attacked. There were even air shafts to bring in fresh air, and also hidden wells to make sure they had enough water. These designs show that there was serious planning and skill done that went far beyond simple caves. But a crucial part of this mystery is when it all started, because this wasn't something built in a day. Much research has gone in, and there are a few theories. One of them is that the first tunnels were made around the 8th or 7th century BC by the Phrygians, an ancient Anatolian group. Then the Byzantines later expanded the tunnels when Christians used them to hide during Arab invasion in the 7th and 8th centuries AD. And the evidence proves some of this to be true, especially because the older parts were built first and then widened and improved through time. Now, recent studies found tool marks made by iron chisels, meaning construction started no earlier than the Iron Age. But according to historical records, there are even older roots, and this is from the Hittites. It's possible that many civilizations worked on Derinkuyu over centuries, each leaving their mark layer by layer. But why did people put so much effort into building underground cities instead of building strong fortresses above ground? Was it only to stay safe from war? Or was it also to survive disasters, drought, or climate change? Today, we know a lot about how Derinkuyu worked, its defenses, its role as a safe haven, and how it grew over time, and still remains one of the big symbols of human endurance over centuries. A place built in darkness that still hides its oldest secrets deep below the earth. If you travel to the island of Malta, there's another underground mystery that is just beneath the streets of Paolo, the Hal-Saflieni Hypogeum. It was an ancient underground temple and burial site built more than 5,000 years ago. The underground temple was later discovered by accident in 1902, and archaeologists began looking into it. Now, at first, it was believed to be a burial site, but recent studies have shown it to be more than that. Now, the Hypogeum has 3 levels filled with passages, rooms, and stone chambers. Previous excavations found the remains of more than 7,000 people carefully placed in different chambers. Some of its walls are painted with red ochre, which is known as the oldest known artwork in Malta. But what really makes this place truly special is its sound. One of the chambers, called the Oracle Room, has perfect acoustics that make sound vibrate at 111 Hz. According to scientists, they say this can even affect brain activity and would be able to cause trance-like feelings. Was this on purpose? Did the builders make it that way for rituals or chanting to connect with the dead? Or was it just luck? Artifacts help us guess. Carved figures like the famous Sleeping Lady show signs of a fertility or afterlife belief system. But something that should be put into consideration is how a Neolithic people with no advanced tools managed to create such a deep and complex structure. The Hypogeum's design shows that these builders were not just skilled, but they were also deeply spiritual. We know that it served as a sacred burial place and symbolized ideas of life, death, and rebirth. The Hal-Saflieni Hypogeum remains a place where ancient voices seem to echo through the stone, reminding us that some secrets stay just out of reach for a long time. There are many mysteries held by Egypt, the Great Pyramid, and other massive structures, but none holds more mystery than the Great Sphinx of Egypt. Located on the Giza Plateau in Egypt, facing the rising sun, the Great Sphinx of Giza is one of the most recognizable and mysterious monuments in the world. The statue has a lion's body and a human head, stretching about 240 feet long and rising 66 feet high. It has watched over the desert for more than 4,000 years, yet many of its secrets are still unknown. Most experts believe the Sphinx was carved around 2500 BC during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, and many also think the face of the Sphinx was modeled after Khafre himself, and their reason is because his pyramid sits behind the statue. But what if this statue was built longer ago than we think? One major proof of this is the fact that the stone was worn down over time, and this points to one clear piece of evidence. The deep grooves and erosion on the Sphinx's body came from heavy rainfall, not just from wind and sand. Now, if this is true, it would mean the statue is much older than we think, and that it was built during a time when Egypt had a wetter climate, long before the age of the pharaohs. Secondly, They're the stories about secret rooms and tunnels hidden beneath it. Now, these might seem to be speculation, but ancient records also point out these facts. And not only that, new scanning technologies have found signs of empty spaces underneath the Sphinx's paws and body. No one has confirmed what's inside, but many wonder if there are still undiscovered chambers waiting to be explored. And then there's the face. Looking at its face, researchers notice that it looked smaller compared to the massive lion body. And this points to one thing. It must have been reshaped long ago and must have originally looked different. Maybe the head of another god or a lion before being reworked to show a human face. No one can say for sure. The Sphinx wasn't just a statue, it was a guardian, placed to watch the horizon and symbolize strength, protection, and the eternal connection between the pharaoh and the gods. So even though we claim to know who built it, its hidden spaces and changed face points us to a more distant time. The Great Sphinx continues to stare across the sands of Egypt, guarding not just the pyramids, but mysteries that time has hidden. In China, there's another ancient wonder that lies buried and sealed. In Shaanxi province, near the city of Xi'an, the tomb of Qin Huang, the first emperor of China, has been there for decades. He ruled from 221 BC and was known as the one who united all the warring states. He also created a single currency and even standardized language and measurements across the empire. But what makes him most famous is not his rule, it's his mysterious tomb. Not everyone knows the Terracotta Army, which was found in 1974. But here is where it gets interesting. It is only a small part of this massive burial site. These 8,000 clay soldiers that stand in rows, along with horses and chariots, were actually made to protect the emperor in the afterlife. Each of these statues has its own face and features, making them look like real individuals frozen in time. But these figures only guard the outside of the tomb. The emperor's actual burial chamber, where his body lies, has never been opened. Ancient records written by the historian Sima Qian describe the inside as a miniature version of an empire. According to the records, the tomb had rivers of mercury flowing through it to represent real waterways, while the ceiling was decorated with jewels to look like the stars. But this wasn't just a myth. When scientists tested the soil near the mound, they found extremely high mercury levels, showing that those ancient descriptions might be true. So why hasn't the tomb been opened? Experts worry that breaking into it could destroy everything inside. When the terracotta warriors were first uncovered, their faces faded and crumbled after contact with air. Opening the emperor's chambers too early could cause the same kind of damage, losing details that can never be restored. There's also the danger if mercury really does fill the tomb, it could be toxic and unsafe for workers. For now, the tomb remains untouched. We know it exists, and we know it holds treasures and information about China's first emperor that the world has never seen. But until technology becomes advanced enough to protect what's inside, it will stay sealed beneath the earth. Qin Shi Huang's empire eventually fell, but in one way, he succeeded. His greatest secret is still hidden, and his tomb remains one of the last unopened wonders of the ancient world. For a long time, Thonis-Heracleion was thought to be just a story, mentioned only in myths and old text. Some people didn't even believe it was real until 2000, when marine archaeologist Frank Gaudio and his team found the ruins under the waters of Abukir Bay near Alexandria. What they uncovered was a city frozen in time, swallowed by the sea almost 1,200 years ago. The city was a major port, a gateway to Egypt. Before Alexandria even existed, Thonis-Heracleion was full of life. Greek merchants traded with Egyptians, temples lined the shore, and ships carried goods across the Mediterranean. Ancient records even say that Helen of Troy and Paris took refuge here during their troubled journey. The rediscovery brought up even more mysteries. Divers found huge statues of pharaohs and gods, large stone bricks from temples, gold coins, and delicate jewelry, all preserved under the silt. Whole shipwrecks were also found, sealed in mud, showing details about how ancient ships were built. But only part of the city has been mapped. But why did it mysteriously disappear? The cause of its disappearance has been traced to a combination of natural disasters, like rising seas, earthquakes, and unstable ground that sank into the water. But the exact time of these events is still unclear. The city's role in religion and politics is also crucial. The massive temple and the nature of these temples that remain show that it was a sacred place. But not just any sacred place. It was where pharaohs were blessed by Amun because of their rule. Some artifacts suggest rituals mix Egyptian and Greek traditions, making Thonis-Heracleion a real crossroads of cultures. Thonis-Heracleion was not a myth, but a real city full of trade, faith, and power. And every dive uncovers new finds, each statue or coin giving another clue, reminding us that great cities can vanish and return centuries later as mysteries waiting to be solved. On the dry hillside of the Paracas Peninsula in southern Peru, there's a huge geocliffe that's hard to explain. Called the Paracas Candelabra, it stretches nearly 600 feet long, cut deep into the ground so that its lines can be seen from far away, even out at sea. Unlike the nearby Nazca lines, which are best seen from the air, the Paracas Candelabra seems meant for a different audience, sailors. It's carved into a slope facing the Pacific Ocean. Its three-pronged shape looks like a candlestick or trident, though people disagree on what it represents. To people back then, it would have looked like a glowing symbol on the desert, visible long before they reached the coast. Its meaning is still a mystery. For ancient sailors, it was used to guide them safely to Paracas Bay. But it had a much deeper use. It was a spiritual symbol, said by many to be connected to the Andean god Viracocha, and it was used by the local culture to show power and spirituality. A few theories even link it to hallucinogenic plants, claiming the shape looks like the Jimson weed flower used in shamanic rituals. Dating it is tricky too. Pottery found nearby ties it to the Paracas culture around 200 BC, but it might have been kept and respected for centuries afterward. Even with wind, erosion, and time, the lines are still very clear, carved 2 feet deep into hard soil and protected by the desert's dry climate. The mystery still remains. Who made it? Was it for humans on land or for the gods above? Maybe it served more than one purpose, both as a landmark and as a sacred symbol. One thing is clear, the Paracas Candelabra was deliberate, huge, and meant to last. Its creators didn't leave words explaining it, only a symbol carved into the desert that has outlived their civilization. Even today, as ships pass along the coast, it still stands like a beacon, its meaning unknown, but its presence reaching across the ages. Hidden under grassy hills and layers of stone, the megalithic passage tombs of Europe hold secrets from a time before writing. The most famous is Newgrange in Ireland, over 5,000 years old, older than Stonehenge and even the Great Pyramids. From the outside, it just looks like a big mound. Step inside, and there's a long, narrow passage leading to a central chamber where people were buried long ago. The real wonder is how it lines up with the sun. Every year on the winter solstice, a beam of sunlight comes through an opening above the entrance. That light travels the whole passage and lights up the inner chamber, as if the tomb itself was designed to bring the dead back to life in light. Archaeologists know this wasn't by chance. The builders planned it perfectly, and this showed that they had skill in building and a very deep knowledge of the sky. These tombs were built to honor the dead, but at the same time, they acted like calendars in stone, used to mark the cycles of life, death, darkness, and light. The builders must have seen the sun returning after the longest night as hope for life beyond death. But something that was also noticed was the tombs were only for a few people, and this meant they might have been for chiefs, shamans, or people seen as gods. The Newgrange and other tombs weren't just graves, they were messages in stone, linking the rhythm of the universe to human life. A people without metal tools or writing left a monument that still works perfectly thousands of years later. On the rugged island of Sardinia, thousands of stone towers rise from the land like ancient guards. These towers, which are called Nuraghi, were built between 1900 and 730 BC. They are beehive-shaped fortresses that are unique to Sardinia and remain some of the most mysterious structures from the ancient world. There are over 7,000 of them across the island, standing silently from a culture that left no written records. The towers themselves are impressive. They were built from huge blocks of basalt and granite stacked without mortar, and still many of them stand after more than 3,000 years. Some are simple single towers, while others are more complex, having multiple towers that are connected by walls and courtyards. When you go inside these buildings, you would see spiral staircases, narrow corridors, and chambers that were once part of the day-to-day lives of the Nuraghic people. Scholars have argued about this for years, pointing to different theories of why they built these structures. One of these theories is that they were defensive, built to protect against rival tribes or invaders, and that they were seen as symbols of power to show the authority of local chiefs. Modern research actually agrees with this. The Nuraghi may have been part fortress, part home, and part temple. Their positions often give wide views of the land, suggesting defense was important. Archaeological finds like altars and sacred objects show they also had ritual roles. They might have been community centers, combining defense, politics, and religion all in one. The biggest mystery is how this culture disappeared. By the time Rome reached Sardinia, the Nuraghic civilization had vanished. Even their language was lost. What remains of these great empires are the towers, still standing in silence. Today, the Nuraghi remind us of a people whose work reached both earth and sky. They built with stone, but why they built exactly what they did is only partly understood. A puzzle of power, faith, and survival left in the heart of the Mediterranean. In Africa, one of the ancient civilizations shows a mysterious kingdom. Found deep in southern Africa, Great Zimbabwe shows one of Africa's once powerful kingdoms. This stone city was built between the 11th and 15th centuries by the ancestors of the Shona people and remains one of the most remarkable achievements of pre-colonial Africa. The walls are huge, some more than 30 feet tall and hundreds of feet long, and were built without mortar. Each granite block fits perfectly into the next, often in curves, showing real skill and care. At its height, Great Zimbabwe held as many as 18,000 people. It was more than just a city. It was a busy center for trade that linked Africa's interior to the wider world. There was obviously trade of gold, ivory, and cattle, traded for things like glass beads, ceramics, and cloth that came from faraway places like Persia and China. Archaeologists have found artifacts from these lands showing that the city was part of a big global network long before Europeans arrived. The great enclosure, with its tall walls and cone-shaped tower, was a royal home and a temple, which was a symbol of the ruler's power. The stonework itself is elegant and precise, showing people with advanced skills and a strong culture. One of the biggest mysteries today is the decline of the city. By the late 15th century, it was mostly abandoned. And the theory was things like overgrazing and worn-out resources, coupled with the changing trade routes, had caused it. There were also cases of climate change that made the land harder to live on. For a long time, outsiders had tried to deny that Africans built it, saying it must have been the Phoenicians or Arabians that did it. But archaeologists has now confirmed it was the Shona people, making it a clear example of African ingenuity and strength. Today, Great Zimbabwe stands as proof of the sophistication and power of African civilization. Its walls still have secrets, but they also tell a story of pride, endurance, and a legacy that lasts. When people think of mummies, they usually picture kings and queens wrapped in linen and buried in fancy coffins. But in ancient Egypt, not only humans were mummified. Archaeologists have found millions of animal mummies, from cats and ibises to crocodiles and bulls. These were not random, they were planned. Large-scale deposits connected to the religious and economic life of Egypt. The Egyptians believed animals carry the divine. Cats were linked to Bastet, ibises to Thoth, and bulls to Apis. People would buy and offer animal mummies at temples, like lighting a candle today. Some animals were carefully embalmed, wrapped in linen, and put in decorated coffins. Others were done quickly, sometimes just bones or feathers wrapped to look complete. This shows that demand was so high, there was almost an ancient version of mass production. Archaeologists have found entire catacombs full of animals. At Saqqara, millions of ibis mummies were discovered, each representing a prayer. At Tuna el-Jebel, the chambers go on for miles. They're all stacked with mummified animals that have been offered to the gods. But questions remain. Were all the animals bred just for sacrifice, or some caught from the wild? Why was production so huge? Faith, politics, or money? And how did ordinary Egyptians feel about it? But this also helped to put control in the hands of the rulers, because it linked religion and economy under the temple's authority. Even today, the numbers are unbelievable. Millions of animals were prepared, preserved, and offered over centuries. The remains show a civilization where faith affected every part of life, and where humans, animals, and gods were closely connected through these offerings. For centuries, the writings of ancient Egypt were one of history's toughest codes, and every single temple and tomb wall was full of signs and symbols, but no one could read them. They seemed like magical writing from a lost world to many, and even during the Renaissance era, scholars who studied them closely could not understand them. Some thought they were just decoration. Others believed they held hidden mystical secrets. Everything changed in 1799 when French soldiers near Rosetta, Egypt, found a big black stone slab. On it, the same decree was written in 3 scripts: hieroglyphic, Demotic, and Ancient Greek. This was a huge deal because scholars could read Greek. For the first time, they had a key that could unlock the code. It was still hard work. Experts spent decades trying to understand it. Then, in early 1800s, French scholar Jean-François Champollion finally cracked it. He did this by comparing the Greek with the Egyptian symbolic writing. He realized the signs were not just pictures. They represented sounds. The symbolic Egyptian writings were a phonetic script that could record full language. This changed everything. The voices of pharaohs and priests could finally be heard again. Stories of gods, kings, daily letters, tax records, and even jokes carved on papyrus were all readable. Egypt's world opened up like never before. Today, the Rosetta Stone is in the British Museum and is one of its most visited items. Its mystery is solved, and most people do not realize how dramatic its story really is. Without it, Egypt's history might still be locked in symbols. What was once a mystery became a solved puzzle, showing how one stone helped bridge thousands of years of silence. Southern Mexico holds an ancient landmark that speaks of a history that is rarely seen in history books. This historical monument is called the Olmec Colossal Heads. These giant stone faces were built out of huge blocks of basalt. It stands as tall as 11 feet and can weigh up to 40 tons. Each one shows a man wearing what looks like a helmet, with strong, serious facial features that seem almost alive. They remain one of the biggest mysteries of the Olmec civilization, often called the mother civilization of Mesoamerica. And here are some key things about them. These heads were made between 1400 and 400 BC, when the Olmec culture was at its peak. They seem to show rulers of important peoples whose faces were carved into stone so their image would last forever. Every head looks different, with its own set of features, which makes it clear that they were not random or symbolic. They were meant to look like real people. These were portraits of leaders and power. But there are a lot of questions that have been asked. The first one is how they were made and moved. The stone used came from mines that were more than 50 miles away. Yet the Olmec had no wheels, no animals to carry heavy loads, and no metal tools. Historians believe they might have dragged the stones on logs or floated them down rivers using rafts, and I'm fully convinced that that was how those materials were transported. Then there's the deeper cultural mystery. why did they make only heads and not full-body statues? Some experts think the Olmec believed the head was the source of a person's strength or spirit. Others believe the heads were made to remind everyone of who ruled over them, standing tall in public places as signs of authority. Another strange detail is the helmets they wear. Were these helmets used in battle? Or were they related to this sacred ball game that was played in many ancient Mesoamerican cities? Their design could suggest either. It has to be one of the two. I'm sure of that much. What is certain is that the colossal heads showed how powerful and skillful the Olmec were. These massive sculptures still hold their place in history as proof of their creativity, leadership, and cultural pride. And here we are today, fully in the know of how the Olmec managed such engineering wonders, or what exact meanings these giant faces carried in their time. The colossal heads remain silent and watchful after thousands of years, their faces still filled with mystery. They remind us of the great civilization that Mesoamerica was at the time. In 1982, a group of scholars studying old manuscripts in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul found something unexpected. They found a map that would later become one of the greatest mysteries in geography. It was called the Piri Reis map, named after the man who drew it in 1513, an Ottoman admiral and cartographer known as Piri Reis. But this wasn't just another map. It showed parts of the world that seemed to be known long before their official discovery. Only part of the map has survived, but what remains shows parts of Europe, Africa, and the Americas. What amazed researchers was how accurate it was for its time. The western coast of Africa and the eastern coast of South America were drawn with incredible precision, even though many areas were still being explored by Europeans. The most surprising detail was what seemed to be Antarctica, drawn centuries before it was officially discovered in the 1800s. And that's where the mystery began. Now, Piri Reis left detailed notes on the map itself, explaining that he didn't create it from scratch. Instead, he used information from older maps, and some of those maps, according to him, came from the Portuguese and Arabian navigators, and even from the time of Alexander the Great. This made researchers wonder, did Piri Reis have access of fragments of ancient knowledge that had been passed down through the ages? As for Antarctica, but you couldn't deny the placement and the similarity to the modern maps today. But scholars discovered that part of the map was just a mistake. They point out that what looked like Antarctica was probably an abnormal drawing of South America's southern coast. The reason is that Piri combined many different sources, many of which didn't line up perfectly, and even some of the coastline was drawn wrongly. So the theory that ancient people had mapped Antarctica is most definitely just a misunderstanding. Still, the Piri Reis map remains an incredible achievement. It was made at a time when the world was changing fast. The age of exploration had begun, and new lands were being discovered every year. Yet this map also connected those discoveries with much older traditions. It showed how knowledge from many cultures, ancient and modern, could come together to form something remarkable. So while the mystery isn't as strange as it once seemed, the accuracy of the map can be explained by Piri Reis's skill and use of rare, ancient sources. The Piri Reis map stands today as both a piece of history and a riddle. It reminds us that human curiosity and the search for knowledge go back much further than we think, and sometimes the past still knows more than we do. Back in the 1930s, archaeologists digging near Baghdad found something strange that sparked years of argument. It was a small clay jar, about 6 inches tall, holding a copper cylinder and an iron rod inside. It didn't look like much, but when researchers rebuilt it, they realized it could actually work like a simple battery. This object, now called the Baghdad Battery, is believed to date back to around 200 BC to 200 AD, during the Parthian and early Sasanian times. If it is really used as a battery, that would mean people back then were experimenting with electricity nearly 2,000 years earlier than we thought. The real question is, did the people of that time actually use it that way? Some researchers believe the jar could produce a tiny electrical charge if it was filled with something acidic, like vinegar or lemon juice. If that's true, then it's most likely that it was used for electroplating, which means coating jewelry or decoration with thin layers of metals. But not everyone agrees. Critics say there's a big problem with that theory because no object from that time shows signs of electroplating. There's also no ancient writings from Mesopotamia that mention anything about electricity. Many archaeologists believe the jar probably had a simpler use, maybe just for storage, or it could have been part of a ritual. It is still up for debate, but it's most likely that the above-listed things were the various purposes the jar was used for. Still, the mystery hasn't gone away. Why was it made with those exact materials? Why does it look so much like a real battery? Was it an accident, a symbolic object, or something that proves ancient people knew more than we think? What we do know is that the Baghdad battery is real. It shows how clever ancient craftsmanship could be. But what was it truly meant for? Whether it had a practical use or just symbolic meaning remains only partly understood. Today, that clay jar sits in museums as both an artifact and a puzzle. It reminds us that there's a high probability that ancient people might have had knowledge that's long been forgotten, their wisdom still glowing faintly through time, like a spark that refuses to go out. In 1992, a man living in Shoshang Province, China, decided to drain a pond that had always seemed unusually deep. What he discovered underneath shocked everyone. Hidden below the water was a huge hand-built chamber, and soon after, more were found. These were known as the Longyou Caves, an enormous underground complex that still puzzles archaeologists to this day. So far, 24 caves have been discovered. Each one has tall ceilings, smooth walls, and perfectly straight lines. Every surface is covered with neat chisel marks that repeat in a pattern, almost like part of the design itself. The size of these caves is incredible. Some could fit whole cathedrals inside, yet none of them have collapsed, which means whoever built them knew a lot about structure and stability. The biggest mystery isn't whether humans made them. It's obvious they did, but who exactly built them and why? There are no written records of their construction. No tools, signs, or decorations were found inside to give any clue. It's also hard to date them, though many believe they were made at least 2,000 years ago. Maybe during the Qin or Han dynasties. Many theories have been proposed. Some people think they were buildings, but there's no proof that the stone was ever taken out or used elsewhere. Many people believe they could have been used for storing supplies, as temples, or even as hidden palaces. A few have gone further and wondered if they were built on an advanced or forgotten civilization. What's certain is that even one of these caves would have required removing millions of cubic feet of rock with extreme precision. That kind of work would need careful planning and hundreds of workers. So why would anyone build something this massive and detailed or leave no record or trace of how it was used? Today, the Longyou caves still stand quiet and untouched, holding their secrets deep underground. Their walls show every strike of a chisel, but they don't tell us what the builders had in mind. Were they made to honor gods, hide treasures, or serve some other forgotten purpose? These caves remind us that even in one of the world's most well-studied cultures, there are still things that defy explanation. They are monuments to human effort and mystery, proof that sometimes, even when we dig deep, the answers stay buried. On the coast of Brittany in France, there's one of the most unexplainable archaeological sites in Europe, known as the Carnac stones. Spread across miles of land, more than 3,000 standing stones are arranged in long, careful lines that look like they were placed for a reason that we still don't fully understand. These stones date back to around 4,500 to 3,300 BCE, which makes them even older than Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids. The size alone is incredible. Huge granite blocks, some weighing several tons, are arranged in rows, circles, and groups that stretch across the open countryside. But the main thing that makes everyone curious is why they were put there. Archaeologists say the stones were a part of rituals and ancient ceremonies. They were actually used to mark the paths or places where people gathered. People believe they might have been used as an early kind of astronomical observatory, aligned with the sun, moon, or stars. Local stories offer a different take. One legend says that the stones were once a Roman army turned to stone by the wizard Merlin. It sounds like pure myth, but it shows how deep this mystery runs in local culture. What makes the site even more puzzling is how exact everything is. The rows are laid out almost perfectly straight, sometimes stretching for several kilometers. Whoever placed them must have planned everything carefully, even though they left no written records. Moving and lifting stones that big would have taken a lot of skill, tools like ropes and sledges, and a big group of people working together. It shows that prehistoric people were far more capable than you and I often think. Standing among the Carnac stones today gives off a strange feeling. The endless rows and quiet presence of the stones almost feels alive, as if they hold a secret we can't read anymore. Were they made to track the sky, to mark land, or honor their ancestors? Or maybe they served a spiritual purpose that no longer exists. The Carnac stones still stand after thousands of years, silent and unmoving. They still remain one of the world's greatest mysteries. Even though there are many wonderful things about the ancient city of Rome, you cannot compare any of them to the Lycurgus Cup because it is strange and beautiful. At first glance, it just looks like a beautiful glass cup that people in the 4th century AD used. It shows scenes of King Lycurgus, the mythical Thracian ruler that the gods punished. One very special thing about their cup is that it changes its color to whatever color of light is around. When it's daytime, it is green in color, but when you try to shine a light through it, the color would change to a deep red. For a very long time, as long as a century, nobody was able to understand or explain why the cup was like that. But then scientists used a microscope to look at it and found out the secret behind it. They found out that the reason it was like that was because the Romans used a form of nanotechnology. In the glass, there were very tiny bits of gold and silver. They were so small that you could only measure them in nanometers. It was the tiny pieces that reacted to light and made it scatter in ways that changed how the glass looked, depending on the brightness or angle the light came from. Today, we call that kind of glass dichroic. The Romans didn't have any specific explanation for it then. They just had skills and knew how to use them. The Lycurgus Cup is one of a kind and very special. It just shows us how ancient people discovered techniques that were lost for a very long time. Some researchers think that the cup was used for rituals, so that the changing of the colors would be used to make rituals. It's just like having a Roman feast with a glass lamp that shone light on a glass and made it glow and change color. It made everyone excited and awed. Presently, the Lycurgus Cup is kept in the British Museum. It will forever be a reminder that the ancient people knew and achieved more than we think they did. In 1939, just before the Second World War started, archaeologists in England found one of the greatest things they ever saw. It was the Sutton ship burial, and they found it in a field in Suffolk, England. Under a very big mound, they found traces of a big wooden ship that was as long as 80 feet, filled with treasures that only a king could have. The burial happened in the early 7th century AD. People call it the Dark Ages because kingdoms were small. Only some of the people could read or write, and different kings kept ruling. Even though the people of that time were primitive, the wealth that they found at Sutton did not look like it came from a primitive world. There was gold and jewels, silver plates from Byzantium, fine weapons, and a popular helmet that was decorated with symbols of a warrior. Whose grave was it? The ship decayed and nobody was found in it. Maybe it dissolved because the ground was acidic. Some historians believe that the person that was buried there was a powerful Anglo-Saxon king, maybe Redwald of East Anglia. People knew him for being both a pagan and a Christian at the same time. If the guesses of the historians are correct, then Sutton is a royal tomb, or even better. It is a good thing that happened in the history of English and shows the connection of Scandinavia to the Mediterranean. It also shows that the Anglo-Saxons were part of a larger world. The treasure they found also meant that there was a culture transition that had both pagans and Christians. Today, Sutton Hoo reminds us that the so-called Dark Ages was full of light after all. They were creatives, warriors, kings, and traders. That buried ship carries the story of an age caught between two worlds. In 1900, some divers in Greece saw something off the coast of Anti-Kythera that changed history. What they found was a ship that sank. It was called the Anti-Kythera shipwreck, and it was one of the best things that was discovered in the 1900s. What they brought out of the sea was full of treasures: bronze, marble, statues, jewelry, and amphora, and the most popular item of them was the Anti-Kythera mechanism. Most times, people call it the world's first computer. It seems like the ship was a merchant vessel that was carrying goods from the eastern Mediterranean to Rome around the 1st century BC. The cargo was built in a way that showed how Greek art, science, and craftsmanship were being brought into the Roman world. The statues of athletes and philosophers, beautiful glass pieces, and coins that were found helped them to know when the ship sank. The main treasure was the Anti-Kythera mechanism. Though it was broken into pieces, it could track the movements of planets, predict eclipses, and even model the ancient Olympic Games. It showed a level of skill that no one would be able to have again for over 1,000 years to come. Even today, many people keep finding new pieces like more statues, coins, and even the remains of the crew amongst all the secrets in the shipwreck. Maybe the biggest question is whether the Anti-Kythera mechanism was the only one of its kind, or if there were more like it that are now lost because it was a long time ago. No other device like it has ever been found. That's why the wreck is the only way we know that the ancient world was far more advanced than we thought. The Anti-Kythera shipwreck isn't just a place where old treasures were found. It reminds us that ancient people were thinkers and inventors, capable of great innovation. And it shows that the sea still hides many parts of our past, waiting for someone to bring them back into the light. Close to a hill in Oxfordshire, England, a giant figure lies stretched across the chalk ground. The figure is a long, flowing outline of a horse carved into the earth. This is the Uffington White Horse. It's longer than 360 feet and more than 3,000 years old. From a high view, it's shaped like a white, running horse that can be seen for miles. But the real mystery is who made it and why. It was hard for historians to discover when the figure was made, but modern science now shows us it was made sometime between 1000 and 700 BC, during the Late Bronze Age or Early Iron Age. This means it's one of the oldest and most lasting geoglyphs in Europe. It was made in a simple and clever way, by scraping away the grass and topsoil to reveal the white chalk underneath. Then they scour it to keep it clean. They continued this even into the Middle Ages. It was used to mark tribal land or served as a symbol for a group of people who lived nearby. Or it had a sacred or ritual meaning that had something to do with a horse goddess or fertility beliefs. In prehistoric Europe, they saw horses as powerful and sacred animals that have speed, strength, and status. Another idea is that the figure had an astronomical purpose. Some researchers think the horse lines up with the sun's path on Midsummer's Day. Whether it was a mark of identity, a sacred symbol, or something else, was very important to the people who made it. What makes the Uffington horse unique is its design. It's not like later chalk figures, which look more realistic. This one is smooth and abstract, with long curved lines that make it look like it's moving. That makes people wonder if it was meant to be looked at from the ground or somewhere high, as if it were made for the gods to look down on. The Uffington White Horse remains one of the most unique works of prehistoric art that we can still see today. For many years, scholars didn't understand the strange symbols carved on clay tablets in Greece. These markings, which were called Linear B, didn't look like any famous writing. They were first discovered in the early 1900s at Knossos on the island of Crete. in the ruins of a palace that was connected to the myth of King Minos. The find made people come up with endless theories. Scholars claim that this script belonged to a lost civilization and that it held secrets about Atlantis. But no one could read it because the symbols didn't match Greek, Egyptian, or even Mesopotamian scripts. And for decades, experts tried and failed. This made it more and more mysterious, making Linear B one of the biggest unsolved puzzles in archaeology. But all of that changed in the 1950s, when a young British architect named Michael Ventris took on the challenge. Ventris had a gift for languages and a personal obsession with the code. After many years of him studying the script, he realized something surprising. Linear B wasn't from a lost language at all. It was instead an earlier form of Greek that was written centuries before the classical period. The tablets were revealed to be a record of palace life. They also listed things like sheep, oil, chariots, and offerings to the gods. This discovery changed everything and showed that the Mycenaeans, the people who ruled Greece before the fall into the Dark Ages, were actually Greek speakers. It also made them understand the world described in Homer's stories, making archaeology and legend easier. Today, scholars can read Linear B completely. The mystery is solved, but few people outside of history circles know how important this discovery really was. It changed what we thought of early Europe and connected myth to real history. What was once thought to be an unreadable riddle turned out to be simple records of daily life. This means that even small details like sheep counts and oil jars can rewrite our past. Archaeologists were digging around in ancient Mesopotamia when they found one of the strangest records ever found, the Sumerian king list. At first, it looked simple enough. Archaeologists said it was just a list of rulers and their kingdoms. But then you start reading it, and things get wild. The first few kings didn't rule for decades or even centuries. They ruled for thousands of years. One king ruled for 28,800 years, another for 36,000 years. Obviously, no human lives that long, so you start wondering, what did those numbers really mean? These lists were written on clay tablets about 4,000 years ago. What's really interesting is how the early parts sound like myths, but as you move further down the list, the names begin to match real historical kings we actually know about. So it's like the Sumerians took real history and blended it with legend, turning their earliest rulers into half-divine heroes. Those massive reigns weren't meant to be taken literally. They were a way to show how powerful and godlike these early rulers were. The numbers had special meaning in the Sumerian number system, showing greatness, not years on a calendar. Then the list drops a dramatic line. The flood swept over. After that event, the reign suddenly shrinks down to normal lengths, 20 years here, 40 years there. It feels like the story shifts from myth to memory, almost like the Sumerians were remembering a real flood that changed everything in their world. By around 3000 BC, they were already using stories to build identity and authority. Mixing fact with imagination helped them make their kings unforgettable. They didn't just want to record who ruled, they wanted to make sure those rulers felt eternal. Today, many of the later names on the list are confirmed, but the first few kings remain a mystery. They belong to that early period where truth and legend mix, when history turns into story and the line between fact and belief disappear. Imagine walking through a quiet, misty bog in Northern Europe and suddenly finding a human face staring back at you. Not a skeleton, but a person with real skin, hair, and even eyelashes still visible. That's what happened many times over the years. These discoveries are so-called bog bodies, and they're some of the most haunting windows into the past you'll ever see. One of the most famous is the Tollund Man from Denmark. He was found in 1950. When people first saw him, they thought he was a recent murder victim. His skin was smooth, his eyes were closed, and he had this peaceful expression, almost as if he were sleeping. But tests later showed he had died over 2,000 years ago. The reason his body stayed so well preserved is because of the bog itself. These wetlands are filled with a kind of moss that releases acid and removes oxygen from the soil. Together, that creates a cold, airless environment that acts like nature's own refrigerator. It slows down decay and even tans the skin, keeping the person's features intact for thousands of years. But here is where it gets mysterious. Many of these people didn't die naturally. Some have ropes around their necks, smashed bones, or deep cuts on the throat. Tollund Man was clearly hanged. So the big question is why? Were they criminals being punished? Or were they sacrifices to gods their people believed in? The truth is really a bit of both. Some people were placed in the bog as offerings to the gods, while some others were executed, and their deaths were seen to spiritual or ceremonial beliefs of the time. Most of these bog bodies come from the Iron Age, between 500 BC and 500 AD, a time when Celtic and Germanic tribes performed religious rituals and believed in powerful earth spirits. Not all of them were killed, though. A few slipped into the water by accident and simply never decayed. Today, scientists use CT scans, isotopic tests, and DNA studies to learn who these people were. They can even figure out their last meal or what region they came from. Still, the biggest mystery remains: why they ended up there at all. The bogs aren't talking. They just keep holding their secrets, faces frozen in time, somewhere between life, death, and legend. Around 1200 BC, a wave of destruction swept across the Mediterranean. Great empires like the Hittite and some cities in Greece and the Levant burned, and even Egypt barely held its ground. The people who caused this destruction were the Sea People. They were mysterious warriors who appeared out of nowhere and changed the course of history. They were said to be fierce fighters who arrived by ship, raided coastal cities, and fought directly with Pharaoh Ramses III. His victory at the Battle of the Delta was carved into the walls of Medinet Habu, showing enemies with feathered helmets, round shields, and a look of determination. But the question that still puzzles historians is simple: who were these people, and where did they come from? The Sea Peoples came from the Aegean Anatolia and even as far west as Sardinia. They were not a single tribe, but a mix of migrants, refugees, and warriors who joined together during a time of widespread collapse. Pottery, weapons, and DNA all confirm these mixed origins. Their arrival shook the entire region. The Sea Peoples helped bring about what historians now call the Late Bronze Age collapse. Trade routes fell apart and kingdoms disappeared. Even ancient writings vanished from many areas. A once connected world broke into isolated and struggling lands. But their story is not only about destruction. Some of these people eventually settled in Canaan and became known as the Philistines, the same group mentioned in the Bible. They brought new crafts, weapons, and cultural ideas that helped shape the Iron Age world that followed. They were both invaders and survivors, fighting for a place in a world that was already falling apart. The Sea People stand as one of history's greatest turning points, remembered as both destroyers and founders of a new age. Stories about a great flood appear in almost every ancient culture. The Bible tells of Noah's Ark. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes a similar event in Mesopotamia. Hindu writings talk about Manu saving life from the waters, and Native American legends share the same idea. Each story describes a flood that wipes out the world and begins it again. These are called antediluvian myths, meaning before the flood. These stories are based on real events. In Mesopotamia, archaeologists found layers of river silt in ancient cities like Ur, showing that massive floods once covered the land. Around the Black Sea, scientists found evidence that water levels rose sharply after the Ice Age, flooding vast areas and forcing people to move. Those events became the foundation for the flood legends that spread across Europe and the Middle East. Floods were common in the ancient world. Civilizations along the Tigris, Euphrates, Nile, Indus, and Yellow rivers lived at the mercy of rising waters. When the rivers overflowed, they destroyed crops, homes, and lives. The survivors remembered those disasters as acts of the gods, turning them into stories about judgment, survival, and new beginnings. What stands out is how similar these stories are. They usually describe one family chosen to survive, a divine warning, a large boat, animals being saved, and a fresh start when the water goes down. The reason they sound alike is simple. Great floods happened in many places, and people everywhere remember them in their own way. There was no single global flood that covered the entire world. Instead, there were many local floods powerful enough to feel like the end of everything. Those memories turned into myths that mixed truth with belief. These stories still matter because they show how people faced the worst disasters and rebuilt their lives. For those who lived through those ancient floods, it truly felt like their world had ended. And through their stories, that moment of destruction and rebirth still lives on today. In the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro, a major center of the Indus Valley civilization, there's a structure that still turns heads. It's the Great Bath. Built around 2500 BC, it is a large rectangular pool made with baked bricks and sealed with bitumen so water doesn't leak out. Steps at both ends lead down into the water. At first glance, it looks like a public pool, but this was not a place for fun or laps. The Indus Valley civilization stretched across parts of what now is Pakistan and northeast India. It was astonishingly organized for its time. Cities followed straight streets, drains carried waste away, and builders used standard weights and measures. Unlike Mesopotamia or Egypt, there were no readable texts that praised kings or described temples on a grand scale. And that's why the Great Bath stands out. It gives a rare, clear look into the spiritual life of this society. The design points to ritual cleansing. Bathing in water signaled purity, renewal, and readiness for ceremony. That idea runs deep in South Asian culture, and its roots reach back to places like Mohenjo-Daro. Small rooms around the pool and a careful water supply show a planned complex for communal rites and leadership gatherings. The layout also points to manage access. The steps, the perimeter rooms, and the attention to waterproofing tell you that this was built for use with rules and respect, not casual splashing. It functioned as a civic and sacred space where water and community came together. Details of the rites remain off the page. The Indus script is still undeciphered, so the builders didn't leave a readable program of ceremonies. Even so, the bricks, plaster, drains, and stairs speak clearly. This was a place where people prepared themselves, together, in water. The civilization didn't focus on giant statues or royal boasts. It focused on order, cleanliness, and shared life. The Great Bath captures that spirit. Stand by its steps and you can feel the message without a single line or text. Purity matters. Community matters. Water connects both. That message crosses time, clear, human, and unmistakably practical.